Thursday, August 27, 2020, you are listening to the Inquisitive Bro podcast. Today, we're discussing the NHL second round. But first, there's only one Canadian team left in the playoffs. We'll discuss the offseason outlooks for those that didn't make it. I'm Chris. He's Karn. Let's go. Okay, so after some trials and tribulations, finally been able to get my good friend Karn Rye onto the podcast. Karn, how you doing?
I'm good. Chris, how you doing?
Doing all right. So the NHL is in the second round right now, but before we get into these matchups, let's just talk about the shit show that is the Canadian teams, specifically the Leafs.Oilers, Flames, and some of the other teams that didn't perform as well as their management or their fans had hoped.
I've been saying always next year for the Leafs for the last, I think, 15 years now?
Well, it's actually been always next year since 67.
That very true. And growing up, there'd always be older gentlemen telling me, why are you a Leafs fan? You're just going to keep losing. And I'd say, don't worry, next year.
Because you're a masochist, aren't we all? Okay, well, let's just start with the Leafs. And full disclosure to the listeners out there, Karn and I are both Leafs fans, but we're going to try to keep it objective. But first, let's just spew some venom, because both of us are pretty displeased with how this ended up. Karn, do you want to go first, or what do you got to say about this team?
I think this series was just the microcosm of what the Leafs are.
I totally agree.
It was just one of those things where moving into it, you finally have a different opponent than the Boston Bruins. You have the Columbus Blue Jackets. It's the bubble. There's no fans. There's no media. There's nothing going on. We're all stuck in a bubble, so there's no excuses for too much pressure on these players.
Well, exactly. Actually, just to jump on that point, you're right. A common excuse that you hear in Toronto and this media market is there too much media surrounding these kids? Is there too much pressure? Well, they're not there, so strike that off the old excuses list. Two, you're not facing the big bad Bruins. In fact, this is the first series of this core of this team where you could legitimately say that they were the favorite. They should have won, and they didn't. And in fact, they played down to their opponent. That's something that they've done throughout this recent iteration of the team.
And you just had this right before COVID hit. The Leafs were kind of just like one win, one loss type of team. They couldn't get this roll going, but right before the NHL kind of went on their little hiatus, they were starting to get in a roll a little bit. So you thought that perhaps this team was going to have a fresh start. Matthews is a little bit older. Nylander's a little bit older. You're 4 months later. You're playing that playoff game. Even that first game they played back into the hockey season. They played really well. Yeah,
I mean, they steamrolled Montreal, and you would have thought that was a good harbinger for things to come. I mean, you would not have thought that a week later Montreal was beating Pittsburgh and Toronto was losing to Columbus. But you make a good point in that, yes, we were on a good roll after we fired Babcock, and we hired Keefe. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily all just Keefe, because I think we were due for some regression to the mean positively. But it's also just a straight up fact that under Keefe, we were the highest scoring team in the NHL. The only problem is we can't get it out of our own net either.
Yeah, do you remember what was going around the team at that time? Oh, Tyson Barrie is about to get unleashed. Austin Matthews is about to get unleashed. Austin Matthews is playing about 18 minutes per game at that time under Babcock. Keefe is going to push him up into the 20s. He's just going to perform lights out, which he did. But then Tyson Barrie, same thing. And he scored those, what was it? How many goals did he score in the first 4 games after Keefe got hired?
I think he scored 2 or got 4 points in 4 games. Spoiler alert, Tyson Barrie did not get unleashed. In fact, Tyson Barrie just generally had a terrible, terrible season. Austin Matthews, I suppose, did get unleashed in the sense I think he's obviously our best player. So, I mean, I could coach Austin Matthews and just say, hey, kid, go out there and score close to 45 goals if he stays healthy. I think he's just good for that every year.
Yeah.
That's not coaching. That's just God-given talent.
Yeah, I agree. But when Keefe got in, there were some statements made by the Leafs players like, "Oh, this is how the true team is going to be moving forward. We're going to play in an aggressive style. We're going to score more goals." That was kind of the aura around the team at that time. So you thought some changes were going to happen. This team is going to start playing the way we all envisioned that they could play. Then you go into Columbus, first playoff game. You play well. The Leafs played well. And you don't score a goal.
Well, so there's two things on that I want to say. Is one, the changes that Keefe made, like a very noticeable change they made for all Leafs fans or hockey fans that will watch the Leafs will notice, is that we completely changed to a possession-style game. A lot of back passes, and instead of dumping it in, we were often skating it in the zone, which, I mean, players like, for example, William Nylander excel at very well. But despite like the stylistic change, that didn't change the fact that we still lack a very key factor in hockey that I think our front office maybe is devaluing, or frankly their advanced analytics can't really calculate, and it wouldn't surprise me. And that is literally just competitiveness. I think when it comes to playoffs, you're not getting as many calls and you can't be as fancy. Where are the dirty goals? Where are the guys going in the corners? And the answer is there's no one. We don't have that. And I don't want to put that on the core, because the core four, so to speak, are supposed to be skilled players, but it comes down to the rest of the roster, which is deeply, deeply flawed. I mean, obviously, people want to see linear progression with the Leafs, because when you start with the first year, Austin, Mitch's, and Willie's like first year together, and they made the playoffs, first round exit against Washington, expected, but they were exciting, and we had a good cast with Kadri, JVR, Bozak, and all those guys, remnants from a previous generation of failed Leafs teams. But obviously those guys have left because we've had to sign our young guys to new contracts. And now what's happened is this is the worst team we've had in 4 years. It's not linear progression right now. We are going down. We now have to buttress, to use a
Great
very
word. Love that word.
Yeah, to use a word that is almost never used. We have to buttress our core four with good depth pieces, and we don't have them.
Yeah, we have to rely on Kerfoot.
Talk about a very disappointing return. This is some. I guess we'll just get into this now, and this is also relevant for the Oilers, which we'll get into discussion there later. Which is that when you have these high-priced forwards that eat up a disproportionate percentage of your cap, and also doesn't help that with COVID that there's going to be a flat cap going forward, your room for error as a general manager and as a management group is reduced significantly. You need to be able to find good depth pieces at good value to be able to prop up your high-priced stars. The Leafs failed to do that. And the Kerfoot-Tyson Barrie trade was a complete disaster. That's a real black mark for Kyle Dubas, who I think generally is doing a good job, and I believe in him, but that is a bad, bad look. Now, the Kapanen trade, I'd like your opinion on that, but I personally think that was actually a pretty good trade.
Yeah, pretty good. Look, Kapanen was costing us $3 million, and we're going to move forward with a flat cap. We're getting a first-round pick back. That's, you kind of tack it on to that Patrick Marleau deal. You know, you get that back there.
Yeah, that was definitely very important.
Yeah, and even Philip Hollander seems like he could play a role in the NHL. So you get a prospect that has a chance of making it to the show. So that's always a good sign. And it just gives us the ability to move around and figure some things out to address that depth need. Because obviously Kerfoot wasn't working. Even I wanted to see a little bit more out of Mikheyev.
He started off so well, and if you read Sportsnet or TSN, it's basically Leaf Central over there. A lot of the Canadian listeners will know. They barely talk about any other hockey teams other than puff pieces, but you'd find that they talk about Mikheyev in the sense like, oh my God, his 5-on-5 numbers for the first half of the season when he was healthy were really good when he was playing with Tavares. Then obviously he got his wrist lacerated, and I don't know how much stock you can take in when he came back, because he wasn't that good in the playoffs in the 5 games.
He was training camp MVP, so I thought he was going to come out just
Right.
killing it.
Who are the defensemen on his team versus the opposing Leafs team? Because if he was getting like Cody Ceci as the top pair, then yeah, I could be MVP for that. Probably not actually, but close.
Yeah, so I think that's where the Leafs' shortfalls were apparent, is with those guys. Like, not even looking at the big four. Obviously, Marner didn't play as well as he should have. That was clear to me.
He played very uninspiring. I mean, just in general, the team. One thing that the front office spoke about at length is the idea that this team was quote unquote resilient. Well, they weren't really resilient at all. I mean, they would come after losing 3 games in a row. They might come back with a good game, but no, like when the chips were down, so often they just played soft. And I hate to use it, but I think ultimately this iteration of the team was a soft team, which is why I'm happy that we move off higher priced depth forwards that didn't do anything like Kapanen. Like, Kapanen did nothing for us this year.
Just fast. That's it.
He is, to use a basketball analogy, because I know you're a basketball fan, he is the Jeff Green of the NHL. He's got very, very noticeable, loud, physical gifts and skills. And any team that from afar is like, oh my God, like, look at that guy
Raw
skate.
skill, yeah, raw skill.
Hard shot, which always flies over the top.
Tools, no toolbox.
Tools. Yeah, no toolbox.
That's what it is. He's the type of guy that he'll speed down the left wing and just shoot it at the goalie's chest, or miss the net and it'll just ricochet around to your own net. Yeah. So I
would celebrate him if he hit the chest. Often he would just speed down and rifle it right over the crossbar.
But then he would get that breakaway, big short-handed goal, and everyone would be like, I love Kapanen. And that's what it's such a love-hate relationship with him. And even like against the Washington Capitals that first year we made the playoffs with this new squad.
Yeah.
That goal in double overtime. Those are the types of things.
That was Brian Boyle, though.
Yeah, very true. But Kapanen was starting to get a little bit of a, like he won it for Finland as well in OT for the World Juniors. Things like that. He started getting like this love relationship with some fans because he showed these skills and he had these big moments. Even against the Bruins, he scored some big goals. But just the other times, he just wasn't apparent. He was invisible in this series completely.
This is the thing about youth, right? It's promising. It's fun. It's like you're like a new toy when you're young. But where's the consistency? That's important in hockey. Day-to-day basis. What are you giving me? What do I know that you're going to provide? Kapanen is the type of guy that every 10th day is going to provide an amazing highlight. And you'll be like, oh my God, Cappy. Like, what a great play. But then in those 9 games, you don't even notice him, right? And unfortunately, that's the situation with a lot of the Leafs players that are not the core 4. And then it comes down to a pure assetization of the players. I mean, you talk people like maybe trade Janssen. Well, Janssen has no trade value.
Yeah.
He has no trade value right now. He had a terrible year this year, and he's very suspect because he doesn't come with that first round pedigree, and he's older than Kapanen, even though I think skill-wise, him and Kapanen are probably not that far off. At least I haven't seen that much of a difference in their NHL careers. I think they're both 40-point guys.
Yeah.
But Cappy just has that
extra flair.
Yeah, he just has that extra flair.
He has one skill he's just completely elite at, and that's what makes people just love and enjoy to see him play, because that speed, that's McDavid-like speed, right? Straight line speed, though. That's the problem.
And the hands, and also the hands can't keep up with it.
Exactly.
To finish off on Cappy, I suppose, like in a hockey sense, he reminds me, and I wouldn't be the only one to say this, reminds me so much of Michael Grabner, who also had a not so ceremonious time with the Leafs. And I would not be surprised if like a year later, Kapanen is also scoring like 28 goals away from the Leafs. But still, I think it's a good trade. I think it's good to get off that money. You can reallocate it to different positions of need, aka defense. But I guess this will lead me then to ask you, what other moves would you make if you were Kyle Dubas?
I think one final point on Kapanen.
Yeah, go for it.
I just want to say, there's that one moment in the series against Columbus where he had that semi-breakaway, and he decided to pass it backwards. Or did he hold it and try to make it? I don't know what he did, but it was like it was a moment where, oh my God, Kapanen's going to score here. all of a sudden it made it into a nothing play. And it was just like, that's the hockey IQ that Kapanen lacks and makes him so frustrating.
Oh my God, his decision making is terrible. He shoots when you think he should pass, and at the moment where it's so obvious he should shoot, he's like, nah, I'm gonna try to pass here.
Yeah. And then moving into the next point, what should Dubas do?
Right, because
you start using that first round pick and try to get some defense or whatever it may be. It might be even Freddie, get a replacement for Freddie, whatever it is.
What I'm really getting to then is because you see a lot of fans out there on the comment sections of like certain articles, and what they're really yelling at is they want some big changes because obviously they're unhappy, and they're talking about a Marner-Nylander trade. My question is to you is that even worth it?
At this point, I don't think it's worth it because of the cap flatlining. There's very minimal suitors for Marner, for example. 10 point, what is it, 10.8?
It's like 10.6.
Yeah, 10.6, whatever.
I think he has his number in there as well.
Yeah.
You know how players like to get their number in there somewhere?
Yeah, I think Matthews is like 11.634.
Yeah.
So it might be something like that. But no one's going to be able to trade for Marner and give up anything great. It's not going to be draft picks because we're going to have to take on money, right? So I don't see Marner being a potential suitor for a lot of teams.
I agree with you. Going back to the pure assetization of things, I mean, it's all well and good to yell and scream, get rid of these underperforming forwards. I get that.
Bad time to trade them.
Exactly. And also, it's not about getting rid of them because what are you getting back? That's important, right? Are you going to get that stud defenseman? Is Columbus going to trade you Seth Jones? Probably not, because those guys are really important. And the worst thing you can do is make a rush trade because your fans aren't happy, and next thing you know, you end up with Taylor Hall for Adam Larson, and that's literally a worst-case scenario, and then you're fired within a year, and your team is terrible. Not terrible, but it's strapped for years on end. And, like, going to the Oilers, they could have used Taylor Hall the last few years. He would have been amazing for them. Adam Larson, not doing that much for him.
Taylor Hall would be perfect for them, actually.
Yeah.
And I think this whole Marner situation showcases how bipolar the fan base is. There were so many people that were saying, you got to sign Marner to any contract he wants. $11 million, give it to him. Or, no, we can't let him sign an offer sheet. The best thing that could have happened to Marner with the Marner situation is if we let him sign an offer sheet and get 4 first-round picks. And use that $11 million to sign someone else, a defenseman, or it could even be Artemi Panarin.
Well, the question is, who is giving up 4 first-round picks? Because, put it in this context.
No one wanted to, but fans thought that it was going to... You remember last summer, it was the talk of the town. Marner is going to get offer sheeted. I looked at it and said, there's no chance
way.
any team is going to do this.
Put it this way, do you remember what it cost to get Phil Kessel to the Leafs? And also young electric winger? 2 first-round picks. 4? I mean,
yeah.
Come on. It's
actually that situation was weird because if we actually offer sheeted him, we would have gave up less, and our trade actually made us add a first round pick for some reason. Burke was going through that whole Dustin Penner situation, didn't want to offer sheet anyone because it was against his, I guess, hockey morality. So he actually added to make it a trade instead of an offer sheet, which is weird. Fun fact there.
Yeah, that's some hockey lore right there. Berkey's just rage fest after he lost Dustin Penner, who really didn't end up doing anything else. And,
exactly.
But Burke really liked Dustin's truculence.
Yeah.
And he tried to bring that to Toronto, and it did not work. We'll finish up on the Leafs, and we'll move to the Oilers. But before I say anything, I suppose, Dubas has been very clear that he's not going to trade the core 4, so it doesn't really matter what the fan base says. But there's kind of a juxtaposition between the fan base because the team wants a skilled team. I feel like Toronto likes a blue-collar team. I mean, you look at the Raptors, for example. They don't lack competitiveness. They don't lack heart. They may lack skill, but they've made up for it, and in fact, they won a championship for it. Although they did have a lot of skill. But if you look at that model and then you look at the Leafs, it's not the same, and I think fans really, really don't identify with it. I mean, there's a reason why fans loved Colton Orr and Fraser McLaren, even though they sucked. Ty Domi is still beloved here.
Yep.
His son is like semi-beloved here, even though he plays on Montreal.
Exactly. And when Dubas first came in, I thought to myself, I'm going to like this advanced stats thing. This young GM that's going to go and look at all these underlying statistics on these players, and he's going to figure it out. He's going to find things that maybe the eye test doesn't show us. Mm-hmm. But then after this series, when Dubas tells the media that Cody Ceci and his underlying stats show that he's a good player, that makes me not want to be an advanced stats guy anymore. That makes me want to become an eye test guy, because that is a point for the eye test folk. Because Cody Ceci is clearly not a good hockey player. He's not a good defenseman. There's that point in the series where he took a one-timer or a slap shot from the point, and it literally went the worst shot I've ever seen in my life. No, I'm not kidding about that. We're talking about any time I've ever played hockey in my life.
I know exactly what you're talking about. When that was the game where the Leafs made that, obviously the heroic 3-0 comeback, which was for nothing, as is the Leafs do. Like, make comebacks for no purpose, basically. But I read this comment on Reddit where basically it's like, what the hell happened? And someone commented, like, Cody Ceci's shot was so bad, it ripped a hole through the space-time continuum and made the Leafs good. Just for a game, apparently, though. But, like, it was so atrociously bad that you just have to, like, all you do is reference a bad Cody Ceci shot, and I know exactly what you're talking about. On that Kyle Dubas point, though, one, the postseason press conferences are all political. So I don't take much stock in anything you said about Cody Ceci or Tyson Barrie. You're not going to go up in front of the media and say, like, these guys fucking suck. Even though he may be thinking that.
He did bring
I
them
really
in,
hope
though.
he's thinking that, though.
He did bring Cody Ceci in, though.
He did. He brought in Cody Ceci, though, to kind of replace the value that Nikita Zaitsev brought, and he only did it for 1 year. They signed for the same AAV, right? So I think he was just trying to make a stopgap in between some of our defensive prospects. Unfortunately, I mean, one of them, for Liljegren, still isn't developing as we'd hoped. But I'll finish on the Leafs on this because, oh my God, we spent so much time on them. Dubas was brought in because he was supposed to be an advanced analytics guy. Since it's a cap world, they've been using their financial might in their front office, their stats department, advanced analytics. It's time to show dividends for that. You can't have any more players where fans, even the most rudimentary fans, looking, it's like, hey, that guy sucks. Why is he on the ice? I mean, it's apparent. It's obvious. And yet he kept playing. It's time for fans to find, like, oh my God, I've never heard of that guy. He's a 7th rounder or something, or way out of Europe, and he's amazing. Like, look at Tampa Bay, who's in the 2nd round, playing Boston up 2-1. And that is the team we're very clearly molding our team against, and we are not even close.
Far.
Yeah, we are very far.
Speaking of another team that's far, the Edmonton Oilers. Connor McDavid, pack your shit and come to Toronto, because the Oilers are not doing anything, and we're 4 years into his career now? And is it going on to 5 now? I think next season is fifth year.
No, it's his 5th year.
It's his 5th year.
It's his 5th year. It's Draisaitl's 6th year. Look, the Oilers have a lot of similarities to the Leafs. 2 high-priced forwards, except actually their forwards are better than ours. They have 2 of the top 5 players in the league. Maybe the top 2, I mean, in any given year.
Yeah.
You have 2 Hart Trophy guys. Most times, the Art Ross winner is the Hart Trophy winner, and I think Draisaitl is the rightful Hart winner this year.
He's phenomenal.
He's amazing. And like the Leafs, they have nothing to support them. I mean, Nuge is pretty good, but I mean, actually, I brought up their here. Let me bring up their stats. Do you know who their 4th leading scorer is?
No clue.
Zach Kassian.
Truculence.
So, Leon Draisaitl had 110 points. Awesome. Connor McDavid, number 2 in the league, with 97 points. Sick. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins was 3rd on their team, 61 points. You know, that's solid. Not what you want, by the way, not what you want with the former number 1 overall pick, but hey, like he's turned himself, he's pretty much a solid number 2 center these days, although he plays the wing sometimes too. But Zach Kassian, 4th on their team, 34 freaking points. Like, that is not good enough. And I mean, then you got 2 defensemen, James Neal, 31 points. Like they might have to buy him out. They may not. It's probably too long for them to buy him out. Josh Archibald, Alex Chason, like this team really doesn't have depth at all. And like, not to mention, like they really bungled the Andreas Athanasiou trade. 2 second-round picks for a guy who gets 2 points. Mind you, they thought he'd play more games, but he also didn't do anything in the playoffs.
And that goalie situation, signing Mikko Koiskinen was a head-scratcher to me.
It was, but so the thing is, that was the previous administration. I don't know what ownership is doing when they let Peter Chiarelli, who was going to get fired, just make one more move. Where it's like, hey, let's just sign this goalie to multiple years, even though he's had no track record other than the few games he already played. But meet the new boss, same as the old boss. I hate to say it with Holland, but what the hell was that Zach Kassian extension? That was right away terrible. And that's really, really going to hurt them. No one wants Zach Kassian. Edmonton probably doesn't even want Zach Kassian anymore. I mean, they signed him to $3.2 million based on his stats that he basically got by playing with Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
Fucking newsflash. I could score 10 goals playing with Connor McDavid. He is that good. Like, Edmonton's got to realize that you can get guys on minimum deals. Just put them next to Connor's wing. Let him take care of it. You just keep your stick on the ice, drive to the net. Next thing you know, that puck is on your stick, and all you have to do is put it in the open net.
Kind of like what the Penguins do with Sidney Crosby. They usually put 2 random guys on his line, like Pascal Dupuis would score like 25 goals on his line.
Exactly. Jake Gensel, 40 goals. Yeah. Although Jake Gensel's actually
skilled.
good.
Yeah, he's good.
Imagine if the Edmonton Oilers actually got someone who's good on his line, other than obviously Draisaitl. But that's not what you want. You would rather have Draisaitl as the second center, and then you have that 2-headed monster, but you would like to have 2 good lines, but they don't. Instead, they have a monster line.
What would you say is I'm trying to pinpoint what the Oilers' main issue is, but I look at it and it's depth, it's defense, it's goaltending, it's overall they're just not a good team.
I can tell you what their issue is. Their issue is years and years of poor management. I'm not going to put that on Ken Holland. It's just, it starts with their owner and then goes down all the way. Peter Chiarelli, you can have an entire podcast, 2 hours long, on just what a debacle that was. Signing Milan Lucic, you have to trade him for anything. You have to trade him for James Neal, who's better than Milan Lucic, but still himself a problem contract-wise. They drafted poorly for years. They have Connor McDavid, yes, but that was something that fell into their laps. No one was going to miss that. Where are their second-round picks that have turned into something? Where are their third-round picks that have turned into something? That is how you create a good organization. They don't have that.
And that Adam Larson deal. Mm-hmm. It was a head-scratcher then, and now it's a bigger head-scratcher now. He doesn't even play games. He's always injured. And when he's playing, he's not the best defenseman on their team.
It's actually not a head-scratcher anymore. It was a head-scratcher then. Now it's just oh, man. Pour one out for...
Yeah. Taylor Hall goes and wins an MVP. And mind you, Taylor Hall's... He's got issues of his own, but
yeah,
Taylor Hall...
Not the perfect player, but hey, would he be good on the left wing with Connor McDavid? Do you think so?
Even Eberle.
Yeah, even, they got rid of Eberle, who's doing stuff in New York Islanders. Shout out to them in the second round.
I think Eberle and Taylor Hall are 2 players that this team may need right now. And what Ryan Strome is what they got for Eberle. You make that trade with the Islanders. You move Eberle. And you don't give him a shot. He was there for 1 year. The next year he played 18 games. He got packed his shit and went to New York Rangers. And he's playing pretty well on the Rangers now. Mm-hmm. If you're going to make a trade like that, give him an opportunity. Give him a year or 3. Give him at least 3, I would say.
I think there's a really poignant comparison between Strome and now Athanasiou. He's up. He's an RFA. Takes $3 million to qualify him. he has arbitration rights. I don't know if you knew this, but there's something called the walkaway price in under the CBA. Do you know this?
No.
Okay, so if the arbitrator awards a player or a team, but awards a price that is under a certain preset amount, then the team can't walk away from that award, and they have to sign the player.
Interesting.
That price is $4.14 million this year. So that begs the question: if negotiations go bad, say Holland can decide, like the Oilers can decide to qualify Athens CU for $3 million, but if they ask for at a max $4.14 million, and I don't see why they wouldn't necessarily, they have to sign him to that. And my question is, what do you do? What do you do if you're Ken Holland with him? Because he was atrocious.
Minus 46. I don't put a lot of value in plus minus, but
sometimes it is insightful.
Minus 46. And you're in a Detroit squad, you score 30 goals, but you got to remember, he's playing top line minutes. He's the go-to guy to score goals. The Oilers are probably looking at that stat line saying, oh, he's going to come into our team and score 30 goals with us. That's just not how it works.
I'm going to bring back a basketball term because I think front offices would do well to kind of gain insights from other sports as well. I think there's parallels. There's something in basketball, good stats, bad team guy. I think it could be used for hockey as well. And I think Andrea Athasiou is kind of like that. Also, another flashy guy, high speed. Speed will always get you noticed.
Yeah, that's. It seems like one skill. If you have it, you'll at least get a shot.
Also, if you have 30 goals on your resume in a season, that typically will.
Yeah, I mean, now the question is, do the Oilers go that Strome route and trade him away right away? Or do you give him a shot for a couple of years? It's an interesting situation because they do need depth. Who else are they going to get, right?
I think you just re-sign him. I think you try to squeeze him as much as possible. You try to get some COVID fear into him. You don't know what the UFA market's going to be like, or the market in general.
Yeah, that's true.
I think you try to offer him term, hopefully a lower AAV, hope for a better return on your investment. Because, look, you can't give up 2 second-round picks, especially a team like the Oilers, who have drafted poorly and need cheap talent and to infuse their roster. You can't give up 2 second-round picks for 9 games and 2 points. I think you re-sign him. I'm almost certain that he'd do better than that. And worst-case scenario, he's still a young guy. You could probably trade him eventually to a team if he really doesn't work out. But I don't know. I think he's better than your other options.
How about bringing Taylor Hall back? UFA?
Not going to happen because Taylor Hall's going to ask for more money. Actually, that'll lead us to another team we should talk about. Montreal. I think Taylor Hall, and this is not just me, I think a lot of people would say this, I think Taylor Hall is primed to be the top target for Montreal this offseason.
I can see that. I still don't think that they should have won those bubble playing games because they had it set out for them, that first overall pick. They should have just scrapped it.
So some unintentional comedy here. And for the Quebec listeners out here, although I'm not a fan of Montreal, I do want to objectively analyze your team. And I felt kind of bad to think about, like, out of all years, when was the last time that the Canadiens had a French-Canadian star? I guess Roy, but other than that, like, last forward.
Just the top of my head, Guy Lafleur.
It's probably him, yeah. It was probably Guy Lafleur.
We're talking 40 years, maybe.
Like a long time. And obviously that was the bedrock of their dynasties, right? French-Canadian stars. And so here comes along this opportunity to get Alexis Lafreniere, amazing French-Canadian star out of Rimouski. And what do? Mediocre team all year? Out of nowhere, heroic effort. Good for price, by the way. But heroic effort beating the much better Pittsburgh Penguins. And you have to thank the hockey gods that they did not pull Pittsburgh's ping pong ball out of that out of that lottery because there probably would have been riots in Montreal.
It was rigged for the Rangers anyways. The Rangers ball was heavy. That's obvious with the drop that occurred.
Yeah, I heard those rumors that it was heavy, but I don't believe that. I don't mind that he went to the Rangers.
Yeah, that's honestly if you want to make noise and the NHL wants to make noise in America,
it's a convenient spot for sure. But I don't believe in those conspiracy theories. Although one note on the lottery, why did Gary Bettman have to confirm that was the logo?
Ball. Yes, that's the Rangers ball.
That is the Rangers.
Oh shit! Let's drop the ball. Oh.
Could you imagine if he didn't know the logos?
You just couldn't see them or something.
Oh my God! It's lucky for the Habs that it did not turn up Pittsburgh. Because to think that you had this opportunity, all you had to do was to valiantly lose against Pittsburgh. No one would have complained.
They shouldn't have even. They were not even close. To the playoffs.
Pittsburgh was a great team. The Habs are going to miss the playoffs. They would have had a shot at him in the lottery. They wouldn't have had a 1-8 shot at him, and they had an opportunity had they just lost to do it, and instead they win, and then they just summarily lose in the first round anyway, which was expected. But my God, if Lafreniere went to Pittsburgh, the Rimouski star to play with the last Rimouski star before him, it just would have been too perfect. But thank God that didn't happen, because I don't even want to deal with the vitriol and hate that would have happened in that market. But the Habs doesn't change the fact that they're still stuck in the middle. If you look at their division, not as good as Boston, not as good as Tampa, and they're not as good as Toronto, even though Toronto is not that good. They're not as good as them. They need a lot of development from their prospects and young players. Nick Suzuki, he's a promising player, but I don't think that he's a star. I think he projects as a number 2 center, a scoring, playmaking center. Kotkaniemi, I think he projects as a number 2 two-way center. He had a really disappointing season, but I still believe in him. He's young.
Phenomenal play-in series, though.
Yeah.
He just, I know for sure Habs fans, although through the season, they had hope for Kotkaniemi, but that play-in series, their hopes of what he can do in the future kind of came true. They saw the vision of what he could do.
But think about the sample sizes,
right?
It
might get irrational, though. That's what I was going to get to. It might be, now it's just oh, did you see how he played in the play-in series? That's who he's going to be. And when he doesn't become that, if he doesn't become that, there's going to be a huge disappointment. I agree with you. I think he's a second-line guy.
He scored 8 points this year in 36 games.
How many in the play-in series? I'm pretty sure he had 4 goals.
He had a good series. I know that. But, again, small sample size.
Yeah,
so.
Well, no assists. He's supposed to be a playmaker, so that's kind of weird. But he had 4 goals.
But it doesn't change the fact that, look, they still don't have enough. They have some nice pieces. I like Domi. I like Drouin. I like Kotkaniemi. I like Suzuki. I like Weber. He's on a bad contract. Jeff Petrie. How many more years does Jeff Petrie have? They're eventually going to have to re-sign him. Price. He's on a bad contract. As much as it pains me to say, I like Price. But he's on a bad contract. That hurts. Actually, so I subscribe to The Athletic, and they had this thing on, they're running advanced statistical analyses on goalies. Basically, it was your salary cap hit versus your save percentage and a correlation between the two. There is zero correlation between how much a goalie makes and how high their save percentage is. If you look at the scatter plot, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Which goes back to the old phrase, goaltending is voodoo.
Yeah.
Signing goaltenders to high prices is a fool's errand.
So Bobrovsky for $10 million
exactly
doesn't make sense.
Well, Carey Price and Bobrovsky looked like home runs. If you're going to sign a goaltender, any goaltender, to a high contract, it would have been them. And look what happened. I still think they
look what happened. Stole a series and lost them the chance at Lafreniere.
Yeah.
That's what Carey Price did. Basically.
I still think Carey Price has good seasons ahead of him.
Yeah.
But it's not as consistent and you really don't like that price.
Yeah, he's getting up there, right? He's
Pun not intended by that, but the point is, look, like the Leafs and Oilers, the flat cap doesn't help them. They have some really tough decisions, and where is the talent going to come from?
I do like the structure of their team. Like, I think Nick Suzuki played really well.
Mm-hmm.
I think
They have a much more traditional structure. It's much more balanced. So at least
they're
you can,
pesky. They're a feisty team. Even like Thomas Tatar. Thomas Tatar is a hardworking player.
I like Thomas Tatar. He's been good. He's been a good NHL player for a long time.
And he's a hard worker, right? And then you have Max Domi, who's a hard worker. And
Max Domi doesn't take no shit. I love Max Domi.
Exactly.
I love his...
It'll be interesting to see what his contract's going to look like. But
the Leafs, I mean, to bring it back quickly, the Leafs, they need a guy like him.
Yeah.
They need a guy who...
Like Kadri or Domi.
Yeah, they need a guy like Kadri. Oh, man. Wish we had him. Oops. They need guys who aren't going to take shit.
The Habs are more tenacious than the Leafs are. And I think that showed in the play-in series. Obviously, I think they don't have that top-end, high-level talent up front.
That is what they're missing.
Yeah, they have a lot of tenacity. They kind of have what we don't have, and they don't have what we have type of situation.
It's a rudimentary way to put it, but it's also like the right way to put it.
Yeah.
I think they need excitement in that market. I think they need either a young stud D, like a Kyle McCarr, or that upfront presence. Did you know that on that? So you know how the lottery balls work in the Austin Matthews draft. When it came down to the last ball, because they all have a bunch of combinations, the Habs had the best chance at that point when it came down to the last ball at getting Austin Matthews. The Leafs had actually not that high a chance, but it came up the Leafs number. Habs came very, very close to getting Austin Matthews. And I'm sure a lot of Habs fans know that, and I think it pains them when they hear that. But they're missing that guy. And I'm worried of what Bergevin might do from a Habs perspective, because beware of a GM who thinks he's doing things for his job.
Yeah. He's
been on the hot seat for a while. But look, if they take another step back, I mean, he was lucky they made the playoffs this year because of the from a performance perspective, I suppose, because of COVID and everything. They take another step back next year, he might not be around, and he may be very cognizant of that. And I'd be wary of what he can do with some cap money and some desperation.
I think they were hoping that Drouin was going to be that French-Canadian star for them, that guy up front that's going to score 40 goals and get 50 assists. They were hoping for that. That was their skill play, because they got rid of a good player in Michael Sergachev there. And
it's Mikhail.
Mikhail Sergachev.
Yeah, you have to say it with like a Russian accent.
Yeah,
Mikhail. But you're right. I think teams in the future should just realize if Steve Yzerman doesn't like a guy, it's probably for a good reason. I would consider him a solid second-line player.
Yeah.
He's not a star, though. They have a team. They have, like, a team full of second-line guys. That's basically how I'd put it.
Is there a point where, what do you do with Carey Price?
I think he just plays out the string. I think he becomes a legend there. Like, just retire the number.
But 2025, we're talking if we have a flat cap for 3 years. That's a projection.
Well, you're not trading it. You're not trading it, right?
The projections are 2 to 3 years. And look, their highest paid forward is Drouin at $5.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
How do you bring someone else in when you have Carey Price at 10? You got Shea Weber at 7.
Well, the Shea Weber contract is a real problem. I think.
That's $18 million. Yeah. We talk a lot about Marner and Matthews and Nylander and Tavares. The Habs have Price, Weber. They're a little bit better than us, but that's $18 million in 2 aging players.
Yeah. They panicked with the Subban trade. He was coming up to a point where if they didn't trade him at a certain point, he was going to have a no-trade clause. They panicked, and they did it. I mean, not that Subban has been, like, wrapping himself in glory other than the first 2 years with Nashville where they were really good, but I'd rather have Subban at his number on a shorter term than Weber at his number at a longer term when Subban's already younger. But, look, finish off in the Habs and just, like, they need a star. I think they're looking for a star. and I'm afraid they may overpay for a star, but we'll see. I think Taylor Hall's just going to take the most money. I think that's what he's going to do.
Yeah, he seems like that kind of guy. So
yeah, and if you got him, you're going to have great lottery luck. So we've gone on a little bit about the postmortems on some of these teams. Do you want to talk about the Flames really quickly?
Yeah, sure.
Good team, another disappointing season. What do you think happens to them?
It's the Goudreau show. That's what it is. It's
Well, that's another thing. Like it's just like the Leafs with Marner, Nylander. Why are you trading one of your best players? He's on a pretty good contract, even though he had the worst full year of his career. So, do you think it's worth it to trade him, even though he's had some disappointing playoff series?
Look, it was an off year for Goudreau, but I think it's one of those situations where you're just looking around and trying to find blame. What's wrong with his team? And I don't know if the fans are saying it's Goudreau, but the media definitely is. And look, this guy had 99 points last year.
I think the fans and media kind of drum up each other. I think it kind of works as a cycle, but go on.
Yeah, like $6.75 million a year. You have him signed until the 2021-22 season. And look, this team, it wasn't a team that you thought was going to be a cup contender. And if you're looking back last year, you didn't think they were going to be a cup contender this quick. And then there was a little bit of talk about them maybe having that chance.
They had a really good year last year.
Exactly, right? So I feel like they're progressing pretty well. I think they're doing a lot better than people thought they would be doing. And you have Tkachuk I think he's one of the best players in the league in terms of what he does and what he brings to the table.
I love Matthew Tkachuk.
I think a lot of people dislike his antics and what he does, but that's kind of the stuff you need to do. He doesn't. Some would argue he does cross the line, but he does it within the realm of the rules of the game.
He's one of those guys, and I love these types of guys. I mean, you love him when you have him, and you hate him if he's against you. Marchand, Darcy Tucker, for example, on the Leafs.
Yeah.
Quickly on Tkachuk. Do you do that on purpose with Scheifele?
I don't know. See, I don't think he did it on purpose. It would be brutal if he did try to do that on purpose. I don't think anyone would intentionally try to cut someone's...
Do you think the Flames pull Senders with Matt Cook on Carlson and get a forensic investigation on that stuff?
No, we don't have Eugene Melnyk here, so... Eugene Melnyk would definitely do that. Maybe he's doing it on his own just to find some sort of precedent with his Carlson situation. He's probably still hung up on that. But looking at the Flames roster, they look like a very balanced squad. You got Mark Giordano at the back. You got Noah Hannafin. You got TJ Brody, who isn't playing as good as
Isn't TJ Brody a free agent?
Yeah, he is.
He is.
So... Look,
likely leaving too.
Likely leaving, yeah. Even Travis Hamonic, I think, is leaving as well.
He's also UFA. He's definitely leaving.
So
he's been disappointing for them.
Yeah, you have 4 unrestricted free agents on the back end on that squad. So there's going to be a revamping on that back end. Do you really want to make all those changes on a team that's kind of doing pretty well? Vancouver's a surprise team, but you would probably objectively say that Calgary's probably the best Canadian team right now.
I don't know if I'd say that, but honestly, I don't think
they're just all bad. I get that, but
no, they're not all bad. I think they're all mediocre to slightly above
satisfactory
mediocre.
Team.
Look, hockey is a weak link sport, right? Where it's not like basketball where your best player can basically lead you to victory to a certain extent. Hockey is what's your weakness? That might fuck you. You need to have a really balanced team. I think a lot of the Canadian teams, Leafs, Flames, Habs, even Vancouver, even though they went the furthest this year, the Jets, I think they're all just solid teams that when they have good years can make it to a second round conference finals, but they're all missing pieces. But the thing is, when you have time, use it. Johnny Gaudreau signed for 2 more years at still a very good price. I would be reticent to trade him for 4 quarters for $1 type deal.
Yeah.
Because he's still tremendously skilled. And then you have to ask the question, did you face the wrong team at the wrong time? Dallas is a really good team.
Yeah, look what they're doing at the
Colorado last year, a really good team. And then you might come back to me and say, yo, Chris, that last game against Dallas was fucking horseshit.
Yeah.
That was a tire fire. And I agree. Maybe it's a leadership void, although I'm not sure if it is, but I don't know.
I don't know.
But they keeled over in that last game. That was ridiculous how that ran away from them. 3-0 lead to 7-3. But I'm always the type of person, like, the answer is almost never trade your stars because you're angry.
I think this is the team that shouldn't do too much.
I think
you've revamped the defenseman a little bit. Mm-hmm. I think their forwards are pretty good. You got Elias Lindholm.
Would you trade a guy like Sam Bennett, who's been
even Sam Bennett? Like, I think he's pretty good at 2.5.
He's disappointing as the 4th overall pick, but if you forget that, then he's still
he's
like
a tenacious guy. He tries hard. He's defensive. He's
competitive.
He
had a really good playoff series against Dallas,
and he has
led
that
them
ability.
in scoring. Actually,
I think that's what's kind of missing from some teams, having that third, fourth line guy that can put up some goals sometimes because he has some offensive flair. Mm-hmm. It doesn't show up consistently, but there's games where Sam Bennett can score a hat trick.
Yeah, that offensive flair showed a lot during his draft year.
Dylan Dubé is pretty good as well. Like,
had himself a playoffs
player. So then you look at that team and you're like, Milan Lucic was starting to have like everyone is turning on him again. Like, oh, he's actually good now. Then all of a sudden,
he works for them. I think. Like, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a fan of his contract. Obviously, like, it's bad, but he was useful for them this year. If you forget the number.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where he's overpaid. He can't do anything about it. Like that Luongo quote, like, my contract just sucks. He can't do anything about it. And I think
good for them.
He had a chance this
If
series.
I was an NHL player, I would dream to be a guy with a bad contract. That means you're winning. Like, maybe not in hockey, but in life. They're getting paid well.
Yeah, we'll give that to Lucic. But
he already has his chip. He's fine.
He had a chance. Truthfully, he had a chance to kind of showcase what he's all about, and he had that ability to finally get that monkey off his back as a player that's looked down upon. Right. But then he messed up that last game.
Yeah.
He got two bad penalties that got Dallas to 2 goals, and they flipped the game upside down.
Yeah.
He was finally getting it there and just failed to convert on changing his perspective.
Well, that's the thing about these guys, these like physical power forward types who score a bit, but they're also kind of tenacious. Once the skills drop, I mean, these guys all want to be useful, right? Then you maybe cross the line too much, and suddenly you're taking bad penalties, and then you put your team behind the 8 ball.
I hate to bring the Leafs up like all the time, but
no, you don't. You love it.
when we used to play the Boston Bruins, the player that I was scared of was Milan Lucic.
Oh yeah,
like that's how scary he was. You thought when he signed with the Oilers that's the player that they need. And then it just didn't work out. And then he goes to the Flames, and it's just like maybe he just needed a change of scenery, and it's not kind of working out there.
No.
But
that's the thing about those power forwards, right? I mean, like, you've seen this before, but these guys, when they're young, they're great, obviously, but they take a lot of bumps and bruises, and then it just seems they don't age well. Their body just kind of like starts
just slow.
Yeah, shutting down. Okay, that's enough on the Flames. I think we both agree they should probably stand pat for the most part, or reassess, and go from there. I mean, if Gaudreau has another 99-point season, suddenly you're thinking about him a lot differently. Let's really quickly touch on the Jets and I guess the Sens as well. Anything to?
We're missing the Canucks.
We're going to get into that because we're going to start talking about the second round.
Okay.
Jets, should they stay put?
I mean, that team is the weirdest team for me because just 2 years ago, they were Canada's favorite, really. You thought you had Blake Wheeler.
Great fans, by the way. I went to a Jets game when I was in Winnipeg. So fun.
Yeah, that whiteout situation. Yeah, it looks great on TV too. And you had those great leaders on that team, like Mark Scheifele.
Blake Wheeler's a great leader.
Yeah, Blake Wheeler's and Mark Scheifele were just both these what you want in a leader on your team, either or. Mm-hmm. And they had both. And then you had Kyle Connor having a great season. So you got wrapped that up. But then where's Patrick Laine?
Actually, okay, so here's a quick question for you. If you had to choose between Laine and Connor, who would you rather have?
I think now you take Connor.
I think Connor too. Laine floats.
Yeah,
he floats in and out of the game. He's one of those guys where, like, you don't notice him for 4 games, and then, like, he'll score a hat trick.
Game-breaking shot, yeah.
And then he'll score a hat trick the next game. I don't think he skates well enough. Like, to be a true superstar. He's great. I mean, I'm just saying, like, if I'm nitpicking here, I really like Connor's game. I think he's a really good player. And I think they have a lot of really good players. It's just so happens that this team got really hurt by losing Tyler Myers, Dustin Byfuglien out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's the big one.
Gone. Jacob Trouba is gone. They just took a lot of hits. I think they're going to stay put, though, because their GM is, if anything, but patient. I mean, I think it took 3 years before Kevin Cheveldayoff even made a single trade.
Yeah. They don't do much.
But I think you just keep trying to build it. I think eventually, like long term, I don't think Laine is. I don't think Laine stays long in Winnipeg. I think he's used as a trade chip, but that's for another story. I think they keep it as is. Keep trying to build the farm system.
They're set in the goalie aspect.
Try to build around the edges. Maybe add a defenseman or two. I like Josh Morrissey, but I mean they took some hits on the blue line.
Who's their second defenseman? Dmitry Kulikov.
Yeah, that's not good.
That's not good enough.
Maybe
right?
try to get some.
That's
value.
what it is. It's the Tyler Myers. It's the Dustin Byfuglien.
Try to get some value deals on the UFA market. I mean, like a Chris Tanev or something. I don't know. Although a lot of guys will go after them. This is one of those things actually in the UFA market. Everyone talks about. Everyone talks about it's like, oh, maybe we'll get a good deal on these guys, and they talk the same names. Guarantee you, every team is going to try to get the deals on guys like Chris Tanev. Next thing you know, you're not getting a deal on him. Okay, that's enough about the Jets. I think they will and should stand pat. Often, the best course of action is just to wait and see. The Sens, they're in a good spot, number 3 and number 5 in the draft. Spunky team, low cap hits, full flexibility and promise.
Bobby Ryan.
Sorry,
except for Bobby Ryan.
But at least now they can eat that because I mean everyone else is on low deals. Curious to see what they give Matthew Tkachuk to. Brady Tkachuk, another guy I like, because their MO right now is sign guys to long-term deals right away.
Yeah.
But not as much as what the Leafs are giving their players.
They remind me of. I keep going back to the Leafs. I'm sorry, but they remind me of that 2 years prior to the Austin Matthews draft year. When they're
better than that.
Yeah, I think Brady Tkachuk is a huge player. I think he's
really good. Who's better? Who's going to be better, Matthew or Brady?
I think Brady might be better as a point getter. Perhaps maybe not the antics. And
I would love to see them on the same team.
Yeah, I think they're the same type of player, but Tkachuk, Brady has a little bit more of a finishing touch around the net, and he's He's
got some good finish though. He's got really good hands.
They're pretty similar.
Their dad taught them well.
Brady's a little bit more. He's more of a net finisher, like a grungy dude. Well, I think Matthew Tkachuk has a little bit more skill, but I think Brady's gonna have that better career in terms of points and all that. So.
Right. Okay. Let's get off the teams that aren't playing, the Canadian teams. Let's go to the second round now, because there's obviously one Canadian team that is still playing. So let's start with them. We'll run through the series quick because obviously they're not done. Vancouver versus Vegas. Thoughts so far? How do you see it going?
My pick for the Cup this year is the Golden Knights. So I think big statement game from the Canucks. Game 2. What a big statement game. I
mean, they got pumped in game 1, and that was kind of like, I mean, the Golden Knights are a veteran team. They got some really good players there. Mark Stone, Max Pacioretty, who's having a good time in Vegas since he left the Habs. I mean, Vegas is a big team. Like Ryan Reeves, even though he doesn't score, he works so well for them. Canucks got intimidated game 1. It's a big stage. They haven't been there before. They lost 5-0. Come back with a big game to win.
Elias Pettersson.
I like their team. Vancouver's a really good team. I still think Vegas is better. This is so promising for Vancouver. Great step forward, but I think this is probably where it ends. But it's hockey. Like, you wouldn't be surprised.
I think they're going to take it. I think they're going to take it far. I think.
Well, they can't. If you think Vegas is going to win,
I think they're going to take it far in the series. I can see that. They're going to take it to Game 7. I think, and I think this is going to be one of those situations where the Golden Knights win the Cup, and Vancouver is going to be like, we took this team to Game 7.
They're going to be like the 76ers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I
Mark Stone's going to be their quiet. He's going to score a couple of goals.
I liked where you're going with that prediction. I wish you just I wanted you to go a little extra with it. Like, they're going to take them to Game 7. It's going to go to quadruple overtime.
Yeah, I'm taking my Nostradamus hat on right now. But I think this team showed that they have fight in them. They have spirit. When you lose and get that pounding, is 5-0, I believe. And the next game you come out and you pound them. Yeah, that shows me that they have the ability to take this series far.
Toronto Maple Leafs players, take note, that is resilience.
Exactly. That's resilience. And we're talking about a team that Bo Horvat just has grown into this perfect leader.
Great player.
He's like the perfect molding of a player you want to progress in your system. Just how he has grown into that captain role as well. Perfect player. He's the perfect captain, I think, for that team. Mm-hmm. And then you have Elias Pettersson. You have your high-end skill. Yeah. And he's good defensively as well. Power
play, extraordinaire, that from the I guess is the right hash mark, one-timer, oh my God. And Quinn Hughes, so exciting.
Quinn Hughes is that X-factor player for them. He's the guy that, look, when they drafted Quinn Hughes, he was highly touted, but who knew that he's going to be one of the best defensemen in the game already?
Yeah. He's that good. Cal McCarr gets a lot of, obviously, pub for being on a really good team in Colorado. He's a really good player. Quinn Hughes is not that far from
not far at all.
And I find it funny where the game plan against Quinn, not to bring a Gretzky comparison, but with these small guys, with Gretzky when he was young, I was oh, just hit him. Well, you can't fucking hit him. He's too good. Same thing with Quinn on the back end. Just run him. You're not going to hit him.
Slippery
He's too
player.
shifty. Yeah. He's too smart. He sees you coming. The puck is on his stick and off his stick right away. If there's not an outlet pass, he's skating it out. He has everything. He's going to be really good. He's a future stud.
And you know what the Canucks have that a lot of teams are missing? You got Elias Pettersson. You have Bo Horvat. Then you have someone that's super interesting like Brock Besser, who's this player that you thought was going to be the top player on the team. He was scoring 30 goals his first year. And then all of a sudden he becomes more of a role player. He's that guy that's scores big goals but isn't a complete player, but he's that perfect supplementary player.
Kind of like JVR a little bit.
Kind of like JVR. And then you have JT Miller, who's a hardworking player that's just grungy, defensive, competitive, feisty, scores those goals around the net, and he's scoring some good goals, just highly skilled goals too. And then you have someone like Tanner Pearson too.
Yeah.
This team is just full of depth.
It comes down to something called team building. It's not all about the stats. It's about personalities and playing styles meshing together well. And Vancouver's found a really, really good combination. Unfortunately, they're against a team that is bigger, stronger, really likely good. Better, veteran-laden, but in the sense that these veterans are still in their prime to late prime. Golden Knights. I think they take the series. But it's going to be a good one. Moving forward, I'm going to go to my favorite series right now, Colorado versus Dallas.
Oh, yeah. That's growing up, I was a huge Peter Forsberg fan and a Patrick Waugh fan, so I would follow Colorado a lot. And that Colorado-Dallas series is like a classic. They always went back and forth with each other. So this series
Patrick
is awesome.
Waugh, I miss goalies that hot dog. I want some
I
want to see a goalie get a glove save,
and then
put it in your face and let you know.
Drop it and let Fedorov score on you.
Yeah, that too.
You need that.
Unintentional comedy, but I like a goalie that puffs his chest out too.
I think big win by the Avs yesterday.
Huge win. They almost blew it though. Dallas is giving them a lot of problems. Radulov is going he has been a problem for them. But Colorado has McKinnon. The guy, talk about McDavid, but the guy might be the best player in the league.
Yeah.
He might be. He probably not, but he's right up there.
Definitely
he's right
close.
Up there.
Definitely close.
He is electric. And he is playing so determined right now. Talk about good leaders. He is a great leader. So is Gabriel Landeskog. This is a heavyweight matchup. I think, despite I like the Golden Knights. I think the winner of this series is going to the Cup final.
Yeah, fair enough. Definitely possible. I think very well built squads, and both these teams have everything. You have even like Mikko Rantanen on the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah.
Playing phenomenal. Then you have Kadri.
Mikko Rantanen would be the best player on like 28 teams.
Exactly.
He just so happens to be on one of the teams where he's playing with a better one, and that is amazing. And also Nazem Kadri is doing incredible things for them. Really could use him on the Leafs. He's like Tyler Bozak 2.0 situation over here. Like goes to a new team and then suddenly could win a cup.
And for the Stars, how about Heiskanen? Heiskanen he's playing lights out. Like I think he's the best defenseman in the series. He's
another guy. Like you talk about Quinn Hughes, Cal McCarr, and Miro Heiskanen, right there.
Exactly,
right there. You're talking about like next generation of future like star defensemen. Those are three names right there.
And then you have Pavelski, who wasn't playing too well during the season, just showing up like he used to for the Sharks. He's that competitive spirit as well. It's the same pattern. Yeah. All these good teams have competitive guys at the top end that are feisty. And that's why I like Calgary, because Calgary has that too. And Dallas has that as well. Jamie Benn is just this grungy forward.
Yeah.
Joe Pavelski is that grungy guy as well. Radulov, probably one of the most grungiest Russians in the league. And then you have Corey Perry, too, at the bottom end there. Like, he's not playing as well as the others, but he's still that edgy player.
Corey Perry still likes to mix it up.
Exactly.
There's a reason why guys are winners. Joe Pavelski, guy's a winner. Plays winning hockey. Goes the dirty areas. Not afraid to get hit to make a play. Not afraid to get hurt. The Sharks really missed him this year. I mean, they were also banged up like crazy, but they missed him. Great signing by the Stars. He's working out exactly like they thought, like they hoped. Come up big in the playoffs, and he has.
Yeah.
I think the series goes 7, and I wouldn't be surprised if it comes down to like another heartbreaking situation, like a Pat Maroon with the Blues.
I think this is. I think both teams are balanced and competitive up front. It can go either way, but it's going to be down to the goaltending.
We'll go to my like least interesting series. We can just talk about it really quickly. Talk about Flyers versus Islanders. I think the winner of this.
We don't need him.
I think
we don't need him. I mean, I guess it's true now, eh?
We'll talk about like not a good look for the Leafs, where Lou Lamoriello goes to the Islanders, builds a team that is the antithesis of what the Leafs would want, and literally taking our retreads and Matt Martin and
Komarov,
Leo Komarov,
Uncle Leo.
And yet they're succeeding in playoff hockey, and also in the regular season. I mean, they're pretty good. I really don't have too much to say about the series. The teams don't interest me. I think either team that wins the series is fodder for the more interesting East series, which is Boston versus the Lightning. I would be shocked if the Islanders or Flyers, the winner of the series, was in the finals. I mean, like, all capitals shocked. They're good teams, but they're not that good. The bracket broke right for them. I mean,
Bet365 and these betting giants actually have Flyers as the top team to win the Cup.
Carter Hart's playing really well. They have some good players. I would disagree.
Yeah,
I would hammer the other side on that.
Yeah, I think Golden Knights, baby, let's go.
Okay, last series. Lightning Bruins. Thoughts?
I think this is where it's a highly skilled matchup. I think Tampa is having their way with the Bruins right now. I think the Bruins are starting to get a little aged. Zdeno Chara at the back end isn't looking as good.
They're also missing their goalie.
They're missing their goalie as well. That's true, but Halak, he's a good goalie.
He's also it's always nicer to have Halak as your contingency plan.
Exactly.
And a guy who can come in when maybe your starter isn't playing well, give him a rest, than when he now literally is your starter.
Do you remember when Halak made a name in this league?
With the Habs.
With the Habs, that playoff run, when I think Carey Price was down with an injury.
Yeah. Like, played amazing. I forget what year, but I remember.
Yeah, he has the ability to do that.
And he can get hot. He's a good goalie.
He can get hot.
He's an overqualified backup. He'd be a starter in a lot of leagues. I don't think he can play as many games. I mean, he's just getting up there in age. He's more of a tandem guy. but good goalie. This Bruins aren't done, though. They're competitive. I mean,
Yeah, they have the worst record, per se, in the playoffs. They've lost 6 times already, so they're kind of just getting by. I think this is Tampa Bay, like, for sure. No doubt
you know
about
what
it.
Tampa Bay's doing? They're playing hard. I think they really took that Columbus loss last year to heart, and they're coming back a lot scrappier. Like last night, who was it? Killorn got in a fight with Torrey Krug, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like they're not backing down. Like the Bruins aren't intimidating them, which is what the Bruins could do with the Leafs, for example.
When's the last time you've seen the Bruins get killed like that, though? 7-1.
It's rare, but look, they're going to come back strong. They're a prideful team. They're a really good team. The series isn't over. It's going to go deep. I think it's a 7-game series.
I think this one is the end of the Bruins' reign. I'm calling 5 games. 4-1 Lightning.
That's some heat. That's some hot take right there. I don't think it's the end of the Bruins' reign, though.
I think the Lightning
they'll just come back next year and be
are
good
not
again.
losing in this series.
Well, I think the Lightning are going to win the Stanley Cup.
Oh yeah, true.
I think they are going to win the cup. I think Colorado or Dallas is going to make the finals, but I think Lightning. I think this is their year.
Okay.
Okay, so I mean, I think we touched on everything we want to. I got nothing else to say.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's going to be an exciting rest of the playoffs here, and we'll see whose predictions come true. I think it's Golden Knights. We're winning the cup there. I'm a bandwagon Golden Knights fan now, so it's going to be a fun ride.
Well, yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be some good hockey. Anyway, thanks a lot, Karen.
Yeah, cheers.